Thanks for tuning in. My name is Janetta from Nex-Gen Farm, and we're going to go over in this video terminology when you're talking to your local farmer about buying beef. So this is a multi-video series where we're going to break it down and make it less stressful on you if you're thinking about buying beef from your local farmer, so that it can be a little bit less stressful and less confusing. So to jump right in, there in our workbook download on nextgenfarm.com, link is in the description, all that wonderful stuff. It's a free download. If you want to follow along, you can print that right off and go along with us through this video series, or you can just watch the video series if you prefer. The first page is all about terminology, and the very first step is knowing what to call your farmer. So I have had customers be a little confused because they hear a couple different things, and we just want you to know, as a farmer, as long as you're having a customer calling directly to the farmer to ask questions is one of the best things that we want to see happen. Whether you're calling a farmer, rancher, or producer, all three of those terms can be used interchangeably, and you'll hear in different areas of the United States, those terms will be used interchangeably. Out west, you might hear rancher more often. Out on the east side of the United States, you might hear farmer more often, and producers being used everywhere as well. So don't worry, call your farmer, rancher, producer, whatever you're comfortable with. That is not a big deal. So the next term that we want to talk about is your butcher. So your butcher may be called the butcher, the processor, or a meat locker. Any one of those terms, again, are used interchangeably. So I will try to stick to talking about the butcher, and I'll use the term processor throughout this video series, and hopefully I don't screw that up, but just so that you know, the butcher, meat locker, processor is all talking about the same thing. When your farmer raises the animal and they get it ready to go, and it's at the right size and age and everything for being ready to go to the butcher to be processed, the animal will get delivered off of a trailer live to the butcher. That is what is going to typically happen. At the butcher will dispatch the animal, will remove the head, the hooves, the hide, and the digestive tract. So like the stomach, the guts, all of that stuff that you don't want to eat. Then they're going to hang what's left, which is called the carcass, into a cooler freezer area. That will typically be a 10 to 14 days of the carcass hanging in that freezer area. And that 10 to 14 days is a typical aging process that gives you the taste and increases the tenderness of your meat for that aging process. It's what you're looking for and what you're accustomed to purchasing, and gives you the highest quality meat that is possible with the time constraints and facility constraints. So you may have heard of a lot of different things, and this is getting very confusing at this point, but there's wet aging, dry aging, all sorts of different types of aging the meat, and so that kind of goes into that scenario. But when you're buying from your farmer, what's typically going to happen is a 10 to 14 day process in the cooler, where the carcass is going to hang and it's going to tenderize. It's going to get that meat right where you want it, so it's going to be the best quality steak that they can get it to. So when we're talking about the processor, another thing to note on this topic is that there are two different types of main processing facilities: a USDA processor, which is federally inspected, and a custom cut processor, which is state inspected. There are different regulations throughout the country. In our state of New York, we have to use a USDA processor if we're going to sell that meat retail. That means if we're selling it to one of the local stores that we stock, or at a farmer's market, or if we sell meat in a smaller quantity than a quarter of a cow. So if we're selling an eighth of a cow, or we're selling meat packages, or we're selling it by the cut to customers, we have to be using a USDA processor. A custom cut processor is used when, for many different areas. When you're selling the animal directly, the animal is sold before it goes to the butcher, and at least a quarter per customer and every customer will be purchasing at least a quarter. So they can buy the whole animal, half of an animal, or a quarter of an animal, but that animal has to be sold before it goes to the processor that's a custom cut processor, and it's cut to the specifications that are available to be able to be done there. So the custom cut processors are usually a little bit smaller processing facilities than the USDA, and there's more of them throughout the state, so you don't have to travel as far to use the custom cut. However, the farmer cannot sell smaller amounts than the quarter to customers if they're using a custom cut processor. They have to use a USDA. In our state, that is the regulations. Other states, you are able to use a custom cut to do the retail, but you will see a stamp or a sticker that says not for resale if a custom cut processor is used. So just keep that in mind while you're when you're talking to your farmer about how it's going to be processed, and if you have questions on that. The next area of terminology that can get confusing, and I want to go over right in the beginning of this video series, is the different weights for the animal. So your animal, when it's walking around the farm, it's getting raised up, it's going to be the live weight of the animal. As that animal gets to being ready to go to the butcher, the animal is going to have the finished weight. So that's when the animal is still live and walking around, but it's all the way at the peak of when it should go to the butcher. That's called your finished weight, and sometimes will be referred to as your live weight as well, because it's still when the animal's walking around. However, once the farmer delivers that animal to the butcher, it's dispatched. The head, hide, hooves, and digestive tract are going to be removed, and the carcass is going to get hung in the cooler and weighed. When that happens, the term hanging weight is going to be used. Typically, that hanging weight is when you're buying a quarter, half, or a whole cow from the farmer, where you're going to get billed by the hanging weight with a certain amount per pound. Also, your processor will bill, typically depending on what your hanging weight for that animal or that quarter, half whole of the animal is. So you may also incur some other charges if you ask for some premium cuts to be done, but your typical base amount for processing costs and for what you pay for your ordering your meat is done on that hanging weight. There's one other term and customers will quite often want to know what the boxed meat, or what the meat that would actually be going onto your plate, how much that weight is per quarter, half, or whole animal when they're talking to their farmer and trying to get an order price. The problem from a farmer's standpoint on giving you a weight on that is because every customer has the animal cut up a little bit different typically, and that weight is a little bit hard to determine exactly up. But if you're trying to think and picture what is the meat on the plate or the boxed beef weight, that would be if you were picking up that meat from the processor and it was all in boxes and you put it on a scale, how much it would all weigh. So if you were to weigh each and every piece of meat, what that weight would be. Going from the hanging weight to the boxed beef or meat on the plate weight amount, there will be a little bit less because there is some fat, bone, different things like that that's removed from the hanging weight to the boxed beef weight. So that will help as we're referring to different terminology and different weights and what a quick explanation of those here right in the beginning. Again, you can get this sheet and any of the rest of this buying beef from your local farmer guidebook pages at nextgenfarm.com. In the next video, I'm going to go through our family weekly meal planner and our family beef calculator so that you can determine how much meat your family is going to typically eat in a certain amount of time. And that will help you to determine how long the meat will last your family.